This, I believe, is based on a popular 1950s radio series of the same name, hosted by the acclaimed journalist Edward R. Murrow. Each day, Americans gathered by their radios to hear compelling essays from the likes of Eleanor Roosevelt, Jackie Robinson, Helen Keller, and Harry Truman, as well as corporate leaders and cab drivers and scientists and housewives. Anyone willing to distill into a few minutes the guiding principles by which they lived. Today, an international organization of the same name provides a venue found at thisibelieve.org for people to learn, read, and share their core values. We are excited to offer this service, I think in its 8th or 9th version today at CVUUF. Please welcome our members as speakers of This I Believe.
Good morning. I believe in the possibility of maybe. Maybe is a simple word with many uses, but what you may not know is it has a superpower. I usually experience this power when I'm going through my day and I see or hear something that catches my interest. And the word maybe flashes through my mind. The awesome, mystical gate in my mind swings open, and I see possibilities. Sometimes a random joke or connection flies out and hits me. Sometimes I see something truly terrifying. Sometimes I like to just leave it open for a while and explore the endless possibilities. The amazing gateway of maybe gives me glimpses across time and space. It shows me the possibilities, any possibility I can imagine. The reason I get excited about these possibilities is because it's the beginning of a larger journey. The spark of creativity, the seed of knowledge, the invitation to happiness, or the foundation of compromise. Maybe makes me curious. I've always loved thinking my way around a problem, looking for different perspectives. One of my Nana's favorite stories is when I was 3 years old, and on the kitchen cabinet was a cookie jar. So she watched me pull out the steps and make a staircase and climb up to the cookies. I like to use things at hand in this way to find their possibilities, or MacGyvering, as you might say. And of course, I'm still motivated by cookies also. Maybe helps me be ready. My favorite books when I was a kid were the ones where somebody had to survive in the wild. They were always having to be forced to think ahead. I like to be prepared. In fact, I feel naked without my mini multi-tool. Try to take it with me at all times. So with this, and maybe, I feel confident I can survive just about anything. If I had ever actually auditioned for the TV show Survivor, I would have totally won. Maybe it helps me stay positive. I've struggled in the past with confidence and fear of failure. That would beat myself up for mistakes and waste a lot of time waiting until I was really sure. This and the video games accounted for my 5 years at junior college, and I was eventually able to achieve a better balance through maybe. Like maybe, while I may be wrong, I also may be right. Or even the possibility that there's another opportunity that will come along as I go. Learning to give myself permission to be wrong was important for me. Maybe it helps me be a better partner. Every day brings frustrations that my baser self is all too eager to blame on whoever's closest. But maybe reminds me to take a look in the mirror first and consider the possibility that I could be part of the problem. And when this turns out to be the case, of course, it's doubly frustrating for myself, but I figure it's better than divorce. Maybe keeps me open-minded. Clearly, human nature is to make quick judgments, part of human nature. It's even necessary, especially in our busy, complex world. But I try to stay aware that the judgments that we make don't always have to stay final. I think possibly the most dangerous human condition is fundamentalism. Speaking in a way with absolute certainty, where there's no point, at no point the opposing view can be listened to, and it's viewed as evil. And adding in some maybes into the mix helps to prompt questions. It tees up genuine dialogue, whether it be with myself or others. In conclusion, maybe has its challenges, but it is the gateway to all things good in the world. I believe that if a big enough group of people that values justice and positive attitude were to really look around, listen, and think the word maybe, that all fighting would stop and a solution to every problem would be found. Maybe.
I'm sorry I neglected to introduce myself earlier. I'm Dana Ryan, and this is what I believe. I don't believe in anything, seriously. They say that when you search down truly deep inside of yourself, you find what you believe. When I do that, I listen to my head and not my spirit. This is pretty funny considering I'm a practicing Wicca, but I do love ritual. I think that's what draws me there. Having said all that, I'm going to tell you a story. Some of this is pretty emotional, and most of you know this usually means tears with me, so be a little patient, please. For those who don't know, my middle child, Joy, is profoundly physically and mentally retarded. I use this term here because it's an actual diagnosis. My pregnancy was normal. The birth was normal. She was a beautiful 8 pounds, some odd ounces, and everything was wonderful. I'd been reading that you should breastfeed shortly after birth, and no one was concerned that she couldn't get anything going with that. She was just born, right? Give her a chance to get her bearings. After everything settled down, I started trying again, and she still couldn't make anything work. Then some kind of therapist came in and manhandled my breast, trying to get her to suck. I'm sure some of you experienced this. When that didn't work, they hooked me up with this ridiculous contraption that I think was destined to fail, and she couldn't get that working either. As it turns out, what I found out later was babies with neurological problems can't suck. Finally, we just gave her a free-flowing bottle of formula, and they sent us home. Things never really settled down. When we did get some food into her, she would end up throwing most of it up, another neurological signal. This led us to constantly feeding her, hoping that something would stay down. At Joy's first checkup, the doctor realized that her head hadn't grown like it should. You know how a baby's head kind of just blows up after they're born? Hers didn't. I immediately started rationalizing without I have a little head, which I do. I have to buy children's glasses, children's hats. We were finally admitted to the hospital after a few more weeks of struggling along. We were there for a week doing all kinds of tests when the most blunt pediatric neurologist finally came in to consult. He took Joy from my arms, rolled her around on the bed, poked and prodded her, and finally said something that seems like it would be really insensitive, but it was just what I needed to hear at that point. She's not going to die. He then went on to much harder things. He said she was going to be profoundly mentally and physically retarded, and she would never walk or talk. He said he didn't know what happened to make her this way, but he was going to give her a diagnosis of cerebral palsy so that we would receive services. I had no idea what that meant at the time, but now I know what a blessing it is to have an actual diagnosis. Families with less specific diagnoses have to constantly fight for everything, but we never had to. The moment we got home after that, I started getting phone calls from specialists who wanted to help us. It was incredibly overwhelming, but also an amazing blessing. Now I'm going to take you back a bit. At the time, we lived in Oxnard, right next to where they held they still hold the Strawberry Festival. Most of the time, it was just huge, undeveloped area, and there were always hawks around. I loved watching them. But when I was about 7 months pregnant with Joy, they disappeared. Nowhere were they to be found for the rest of my pregnancy and on through all the drama afterward. I still looked, hoping for some bright spot, but nothing. We were still struggling with Joy's feeding. Having some sort of diagnosis hadn't helped with that at all. I was having to take her to her pediatrician daily to weigh her. And finally, one day after a few more weeks, she'd actually gained a couple of ounces. On the way to that appointment, I saw 6 hawks. Talk about a spiritual experience. Everything started falling into place then. I had an infant specialist coming into my home to show me how to live life with this special girl. I was given the best advice ever. Just love your child. There were multitudes of hawks around wherever we went. I felt that everything was right in the world if I spotted one. Encounters with hawks surrounding Joy's health have continued. I'll share the most recent one. For the last 6 years, Joy has regularly battled with pneumonia, which generally results in fatalities with these kids. About 2 years ago, she had a horrible episode, and I went into a panic. I couldn't get a hold of Sam, who's been my main support with Joy for the past 15 years, more so since Joy's dad and I split 6 years ago. So like I said, for some reason, I started to panic. I was standing at my kitchen sink, gripping the counter and starting to hyperventilate. I didn't know what to do. And just looking out my window, and then out of the blue, this hawk dove into the tree right in front of me. Startled me. I guess it was catching its breakfast. That may not sound reassuring and pleasant, but it was. It was just what I needed. I knew in that moment that everything was going to be all right, and I could pull it together and do what needed to be done. It was at this hospital visit where we found out that one of her most significant problems wasn't originating in her lungs at all, but resulted from her brain damage and would be easy to control with equipment that I already had at home. What a blessing. So apparently I do believe in something. Maybe I believe in everything. Maybe I'm just a mother grasping at straws, but that's okay. Okay. Our last speaker is Matthew Chapa. He couldn't be with us, but really did want to cancel his commitment, so we videoed him for you today, and we know he's here in spirit.
So hi, I'm Matt Chapa. I'm one of the newest members of the congregation, if you've been reading your news and notes, and I just wanted to say hello. And I'm sorry that I can't be here to do this live, but I really do appreciate the fact that you're allowing me to do this video. I'm very happy to be part of this congregation. As an atheist, not many congregations welcome me. And so this is what I believe. Lying. It's not the stuff engaged in by anything other than humans. Yes, your dog has been shown in endless videos online, may not seem to be completely upfront about the shredding of the sofa, but he's not pointing paws at the cat or at your infant son. I believe that our insecurities, organic or manufactured, are the fodder of this foolery. Our current administration shows us the logical road this will take. We have been bestowed with an individual who is one massive black hole of insecurities, who can do nothing but find ways to blame others, toss cartons of red herrings, or peddle whatever tripe he feels that he needs to do to attend to the newest matter. The very essence of this administration has been a life lesson to me. When I interact with people now, I no longer engage in any puffery. I am simply who I am. I am simply that. Be it in business, dating, with friends, or here with my fellow fellowshippers, I am simply me, sans spin. Mark Twain once said that if you always tell the truth, you never have to remember anything. I believe that if you can be comfortable in your own skin, you create an environment where others can be in theirs. The nature and quality of these moments allow all to work in a space where no matter what the person does, who they love, what their history is, or anything else is relevant. People are simply people, being whatever they are, and exploring whatever they're exploring. Lack, weakness, and the like are considered unacceptable in our culture. Indeed, even the nature of being called weak is abhorred. Yet, what world would be created if children were no longer groomed to dominate, win, or take the alpha mantle? Do we allow kids the freedom to explore? Do we reward them for trying with new ventures without retribution for failure? Does social media create an environment hostile to anything other than being superior in whatever endeavor is being documented? Life seems to be consistently judged instead by a series of metrics. College educated? Where are you from? You've been incarcerated? What neighborhood do you live in? How much do you make? What do your parents do? You're not a Mac owner. You don't have a smartphone? Where do you really come from? What are you wearing? You're fat, flat-chested, walk weird, and the list is infinite. I believe that truth is now a fluid endeavor. A world embraces the spinning of reality to such an extent that we can no longer appreciate the nature of being simply straightforward, much less accepted. We have opted to live in our heads trying to inoculate ourselves from the disapproval of others that we interact with. Life is lived not as it is, but as we feel is perceived by our perception of what others think. Inevitably, the nature of this process trips us up, and we are left having to extricate ourselves from these calamities that, had we abided by Mark Twain, simply would have never occurred, much less the pressure of living, worrying about what others think of us. As for me, I am turning 58 tomorrow. I find myself reflective of the nature of my life. Inevitably, people are flummoxed when they ask, "What do I do?" And I inform them that my brother and I run a small business cleaning, repairing, and selling barbecues. Really? You like cleaning barbecues? Well, I like the freedom that it affords me. I like the fact that there is no pretense when you are discussing barbecue with someone. You are just discussing barbecue. There is no reason to lie about it. I believe that there is always a possibility to alter the present trajectory of our culture. It is our nature to be malleable and redress that which we want to. I thank you for this opportunity to authentically share my thoughts, not as the truth, but as a sense simply of what I believe. Good day.